Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the most unprecedented economic experiments in modern history, India's 2016 demonetisation. We're going to look strictly at the data, the reports, and the timeline to wrap our heads around the sheer, monumental scale of this public policy event. We'll examine the initial intent, how it actually played out on the ground, and what the final data tells us today. And we're doing it all without taking any political sides. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. Imagine waking up to find that the cash in your wallet is, well, practically useless, no longer legal tender. That is exactly what happened in India, where a staggering 86% of the nation's cash in circulation was invalidated overnight. 86%. For a country heavily reliant on physical cash, removing that much of it in a matter of hours is an absolute, undeniable logistical shockwave.
So here's our roadmap for today. 1. The midnight cash shock. 2. The stated objectives. 3. The immediate chaos. 4. Economic toll and MSMEs. And finally, 5. Did it actually work?
Section 1. The midnight cash shock.
Okay, we really need to set the scene for the exact moment this policy dropped. It was an unscheduled, live televised address at 8:15 p.m. Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced that all 500 and 1,000 rupee banknotes of the Mahatma Gandhi series would become invalid. The catch? This strict directive would take effect at midnight of that very same day. That literally left citizens with less than 4 hours of regular purchasing power with those denominations. Less than 4 hours.
Just to give you an idea of the massive scale of this withdrawal, we're talking 8.58 lakh crores in 500 rupee notes and 6.86 lakh crores in 1,000 rupee notes. That is a massive 15.44 lakh crores of rupees instantly yanked from the financial system. The immediate result was an acute liquidity dehydration in an economy where, the vast majority of daily transactions were strictly cash.
Section 2. The stated objectives.
So why do this? Well, the initial stated objectives were clear, and they were multifold. The primary target was to curb black money and the shadow economy. But the government also explicitly wanted to stop counterfeit banknotes, expand the nation's tax base, and cut off the financial pipelines funding terrorism, human trafficking, and other illegal activities. Now, you might be wondering what exactly is black money, since it was the main target here. Simply put, black money is income that hasn't been reported to the government, meaning it remains untaxed. But here's the thing, and sources like the 2012 Central Board of Direct Taxes report pointed this out. Historically, black money holders actually keep about 6% or less of their wealth in physical cash. Usually, it's converted into physical assets like gold, land, and real estate. So right off the bat, there were serious questions about targeting physical cash to fight this specific issue. Now, what's really interesting about this is how the narrative evolved. As the weeks rolled on, and it became super obvious that citizens were successfully returning almost all the invalidated cash back to the banks, the government's messaging shifted. The goalposts moved. It went from strictly purging black money to a new, heavy emphasis on integrating a cashless, digital economy and formalizing those informal sectors.
Section 3. The immediate chaos.
While those high-level goals were being debated, the reality for everyday citizens was honestly frantic. Following that November 8th announcement, the rules for withdrawing and exchanging money changed constantly. Limits fluctuated wildly from day to day. By November 25th, the government completely halted the over-the-counter exchange of notes, despite having made previous promises. People had until December 30th to deposit their old notes. It created an absolute scramble to formalize life savings in just 50 days. The logistical reality on the ground was incredibly disruptive. We're talking severe cash shortages that left ATMs completely dry for months. People stood in massive, hours-long queues across the country. And tragically, this logistical nightmare had a severe human cost. Reports linked at least 82 deaths directly to the demonetization drive, ranging from people collapsing from exhaustion in bank lines to patients being refused critical medical help because hospitals simply wouldn't accept the old notes.
Section 4. Economic toll and MSMEs. Beyond the personal struggles in those bank lines, entire industries basically froze overnight. Take a listen to this quote from the All India Association of Industries because it perfectly captures the situation. Following demonetization, the Indian economy is totally bereft of liquidity, causing an acute liquidity dehydration. For businesses that rely on daily cash flow to just keep the lights on, suddenly having the cash pipeline shut off was paralyzing.
Breaking down the numbers really shows why this macro policy caused such micro-level devastation. MSMEs, micro, small, and medium enterprises, account for 40% of India's economic activities.
They typically function on unsecured cash loans from friends and associates. Well, that dried up instantly. Roughly 33% of their manpower consists of casual, labor, and daily wage earners, who suddenly went completely unpaid. Because of this, close to 40% of micro-enterprises face the very real threat of shutting down completely. It's a stark reminder of how macroeconomic shocks are always felt most deeply by folks relying on informal, day-to-day cash.
Let's move on and see how this builds into a destructive chain reaction, especially in the agricultural sector. First, the cash shortage hit farmers exactly when they needed to purchase seeds and fertilizers for their winter crops. Without cash, no supplies. At the exact same time, consumer cash shortages caused demand to plunge, which crashed crop prices. The result? Farmers literally dumped their fresh produce on the roads in protest, simply because they couldn't even recover the costs of transporting the food to the market. If you want to understand the overarching economic impact, just remember this number, 1.5 million. According to the Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, that is the estimated number of jobs lost in just the first 4 months of 2017, right after the announcement. And for sure, the unorganized and informal sectors took the heaviest hit by far.
Section 5. Did it actually work?
And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate paradox of the whole experiment. To measure the outcomes against those initially stated goals, we're relying purely on the Reserve Bank of India's final data. The government initially estimated that about 20% of the old notes were black money that would be permanently destroyed, assuming criminals wouldn't dare deposit it. But a 2018 RBI report revealed that a staggering 99.3% of the invalidated money was deposited back into the banking system. The black money didn't vanish. It just returned to the banks.
When we look at the secondary goals, the results are equally surprising. Counterfeit notes? Well, after the dust settled, only 0.0035% of the returned 1,000 rupee notes were actually found to be fake, a tiny, tiny fraction. What about the broader economy? Real GDP growth dropped from 7.9% in the first quarter of 2016 to 5.7% a year later. And the cost to physically print the new replacement currency? It more than doubled, jumping from roughly 34 billion to nearly 80 billion rupees.
You know, the legacy of this event is undeniably complex. Demonetization absolutely succeeded in causing a massive initial surge in digital payments. It practically accelerated India's adoption of digital wallets overnight. It's an incredible case study in human behavior, actually. While digital infrastructure leaped forward, old habits die hard. By late 2021, physical cash in circulation had rebounded so significantly that it hit a record high of 29.17 trillion rupees. Cash had firmly returned.
So what does this all mean? Ultimately, we have to ask ourselves a really tough question. When evaluating the massive queues, the paralysis of small businesses, the 1.5 million lost jobs, and the 99.3% return rate of the very cash meant to be purged, does the long-term acceleration of a digital economy justify the acute, immediate economic pain? It's a lot to think about. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking the hard questions and keep learning.